All right, so today we're going to talk about transformations of quadratics. Focused? That's not. Okay, good enough. So the first one, it says describe the transformation of f of x equals x squared represented by g, then graph. Okay, so we have to do two things. Let's first talk about the transformation. So we saw this already with the linear functions and the absolute value functions. Now we're going to look at quadratics. We know it's quadratics because that's squared. Okay, that's our degree, yeah, it's the biggest exponent. Okay, so originally it's x squared, so we want to see what it's doing here. We're just adding and subtracting things to the x. So here we're subtracting a 6. So remember, if you're adding or subtracting to the 6 only, like inside of the parentheses, that's going to be a horizontal translation. Okay, so a translation 6 units, and it's horizontal, so it's either going to be left or right. Now remember, it's inside the parentheses. Whenever it's inside the parentheses, you want to think opposite. So yeah, so usually we think negative is left, but it's actually right, opposite. Think opposite because it's horizontal. 6 units to the right, and the plus 1 on the outside. Remember, adding and subtracting is just translations. Inside is horizontal, outside is vertical. So here, for vertical, it is what it is. So it's positive, so that's going to be 1 unit up. All right, so let's graph that. So the way we graph this is, let's make a table. I use y instead of g of x. That's just what I like. And we need 5 points. All right, so I think I'm going to talk about the vertex. Let's talk about the vertex now. So our vertex is going to be h, comma, k. Okay, h, comma, k. I should have left space, but remember the original form, the general form of quadratics is y equals a times quantity of x minus h squared plus k. So whatever you're adding or subtracting to the x, that's your h. So here we're subtracting 6, but you want to think opposite because it's horizontal. So our h is actually 6, comma, and our k is 1. H on the inside, k on the outside. H is inside the house, k got kicked out. Okay, so that's the vertex. The vertex is going to go in the middle. So we have 6, comma, 1. And we need to choose two numbers that are smaller than 6. So we have 5 and 4, and two numbers that are bigger, 7 and 8. All right, so we choose the x values. Now we're going to find the y values. So g of 4 is 4 minus 6 squared plus 1. So we just plug those in. And 4 minus 6 is going to give us negative 2 squared plus 1. Negative 2 squared is positive 4, plus 1 is 5. So there's 5 there. And g of 5 is 5 minus 6 squared plus 1. I'm just copying the original function. Equals 5 minus 6 is negative 1 squared plus 1. So negative 1 squared is 1 plus 1 is 2. And if you put the vertex in the middle and they're the same distance to the left and same distance to the right, so they're each going by ones, okay, then it's going to be symmetrical. So this one is 2, and this one is also 5. Right? I'll talk about that in class. So let's do that. So we have 4, comma 5. 4 up 5. Sorry. Hope that's right. I have a tripod right in front of my face, so hopefully it's okay. And 5 comma 2. So, oh, there we go. You go to the right, 5 up 2. Okay. 6 comma 1, we go to the right, 6 up 1. 7 comma 2, go to the right, 7 up 2. And 8 comma 5. Right there. And we get our bear. It's a bear. And in class, I'll draw the bear for you so you can see it. That's our quadratic. All right, let's look at the next one. G of x equals 1/2 x squared minus 4. All right, so here we're actually multiplying. So when you're adding and subtracting, that's translations. When you're multiplying, that's going to be a vertical or horizontal stretch or shrink. Okay, if you're multiplying outside the parentheses, and if you don't see parentheses, it's outside, that's vertical. If you're multiplying inside the parentheses, that's going to be horizontal. Okay, so multiplying the whole function outside, vertical, multiplying just the x, so inside the parentheses, that's horizontal. So this is a vertical, since there's no parentheses there. Vertical, and for vertical, it's nice because it's what it looks like. So it's 1/2 smaller than 1 is going to be a shrink. So vertical shrink by a factor of 1/2. So you just write it the way it looks. All right, and we have that minus 4, so that's translation. 4 units, and there's no parentheses, so it's outside. It's actually past the squared, so we know it's vertical. Up or down, it's negative, so down. 4 units down. All right, let's graph it. So let's make a table, XY table. And notice that we're not adding or oh, let's find our H and K. Okay, our H. Okay, that's our vertex. Sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that before. So are we adding anything inside of the parentheses to just the x? No, there's no parentheses, so that's 0. And we're adding that negative 4, or subtracting negative 4 on the outside. And that's our H and K. So vertex goes in the middle. Okay. 0, comma, negative 4. And smaller than 0 is negative 1, negative 2. Bigger is 1 and 2. Plug it in, and we get g of negative 1. Why didn't I just use 1? It's easier. G of 1 equals 1/2 times 1 squared minus 4. Now, a lot of teachers are gonna recommend that you use multiples of the denominator. Okay, it will give you nicer numbers. So you'll see here that we're gonna end up with a fraction, but it's okay. So you get 1 squared is 1, so 1/2 times 1 minus 4. So 1/2 times 1 is 1/2 minus 4. But it's good practice. Fractions, yeah, 1/2 minus 4. That's going to give us negative 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 minus 1 is going to give us 7, so negative 7 over 2. Okay, put it into calculator. 7 divided by 2 is negative 3.5. So negative 3.5. And g of 2, 1/2. Watch this. Since 2 is a multiple of 2, it's going to be nice. It's going to be a whole number. Yay, whole numbers. So we get 1/2, and 2 squared is 4, minus 4. So 1/2 times 4. Half of 4 is 2, minus 4 is negative 2. Okay, an integer. And there we go. So these are going to be the same, and these are going to be the same because my vertex is in the middle, and it's going by the same amount each time. Okay. So just plot them: negative 2, negative 2, negative 1, comma, negative 3.5, so negative 3, and then 0.5 in between the negative 3 and negative 4, and 0. Did I miss the 1? Oh, it's okay. 0, comma, negative 4, 1, comma, negative 3.5, there, and 2, comma, negative 2. Oh, there's our bear. Hi, bear. All right, and that's a vertical shrink. That's why it looks a little wider. Ugh. Oops. Sorry. There you go. I was just graphing, so it doesn't really matter. I'll do it here. Sorry. Okay, let's do the same thing over here. Again, we're multiplying, so it's a vertical or horizontal stretch or shrink. We're multiplying by the x only, so, and it's in parentheses, so that's horizontal. Now horizontal is a little tricky, that's why I put these. Notice that they're similar except for that parentheses, okay? The one that we just did and this one. So this one is horizontal. Now horizontal is horizontable, all right? It's horrible because we have to think opposite when we're translating, and we have to think reciprocal when we're stretching and shrinking. So here it's 1/2, but this is actually a stretch, horizontal stretch, by a factor of and 2. Because it's horizontal, just like the absolute value, reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. And that we're subtracting 4 again, so vertical, oops, translation, 4 units down again. All right. Okay, so let's make our table. It's table time. X, Y. All right, 5 markings. Oh, I forgot the H and K again. Okay, our H, the vertex, is the same thing. So we're not adding or subtracting anything to that X, so again, that's 0. And the K is what's kicked out on the outside the parentheses, so that minus 4. All right, so 0, comma, negative 4, smaller, greater, negative 1, negative 2, 1 and 2. All right, let's plug them in. Are they going to be different answers? Yep, they are. So g of 1 equals 1/2 times 1 squared minus 4. And then 1/2 times 1 is going to give us 1/2 squared. So 1/2 squared is 1/4. And if you're not sure about that, just square the top and the bottom. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4. Minus 4. All right, yay, fractions. So 4 times 4 is 16, minus 1 is 15, so that's a negative 15 over 4. And if you calculate that, you'll get negative 3 point, I'm going to say 75. I think that's right. And we have g of 2. So 1/2 times 2 squared minus 4. 1/2 times 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1 minus 4. And we get an integer again. Yay, negative 3. So, again, these are the same, negative 3.75 and negative 3. Okay, so let's make our markings. I remembered. Okay, so let's go halves. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is our lowest y, so that's as far as we need to go. And then 2 is our biggest x. And you want to try to make them the same distance, otherwise it's going to look, the graph is going to look a little strange. Right? I like to imagine little squares. Alright, so our first one is negative 2, comma, negative 3, negative 1, comma, negative 3.75. Hey, that's really close. And, oops, not there, here. The big dot method. Just draw a really big dot. And 0, comma, negative 4. Right there. 1, comma, negative 3.75 right there, and 2, comma, negative 3. And look at this. It's a tiny bear. So this one is actually, it's a horizontal stretch. So that means it's stretching it out horizontally so it looks wider. Okay, that's why it looks like that. And that's it.